I never thought one quiet evening at home could turn my entire world upside down. It started like any other Wednesday. My husband had flown out of town for a quick business trip, and I was home alone with our 10-year-old son, Ethan. We'd had a pretty normal day. Homework, dinner, a little TV. Nothing felt off, but looking back, I realized there were subtle signs. The way Ethan kept checking the clock, the questions he asked me before bed, the long look he gave me, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I didn't push. I just figured he missed his dad, or maybe something happened at school that he wasn't ready to talk about. I tucked him in like always, kissed his forehead, and went downstairs to clean up. The house felt unusually quiet. You know that kind of silence that almost hums? Like the walls are holding their breath, waiting for something? That's the best way I can describe it. I tried to ignore it and focused on the dishes, then curled up on the couch with a book, hoping to relax. But something kept pulling at me, a weird gut feeling I couldn't shake. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. At first, I assumed Ethan had gotten up to use the bathroom, but the sound wasn't coming from upstairs. It was from the kitchen. I froze. My heart started racing. I called out his name softly, but no answer. I stood up slowly, trying not to make a sound. I walked toward the hallway, the floor creaking under my feet. When I turned the corner, what I saw stopped me in my tracks. Ethan was standing there in the dark, facing the back door. His tiny hand was on the doorknob. He looked so still, almost frozen. I whispered his name again, and this time he turned to look at me. His eyes weren't scared. They were determined, like he had made up his mind about something. My breath caught in my throat. "Ethan," I said gently, "what are you doing?" He paused for a long moment. Then, with the softest voice, he said, "Mom, I have to show you something, but you have to promise not to be mad." I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I nodded, unable to speak. He reached into his pajama pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. I stepped closer, slowly, trying to stay calm. But before I could take it, the back door creaked open behind him. I looked up, expecting the wind, but it wasn't the wind. And that's when everything changed. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened next, or for what my son had done while my husband wasn't home. The door opened slowly, almost like someone on the other side didn't want to be heard. I stepped forward on instinct, placing my hand gently on Ethan's shoulder, pulling him slightly behind me. My mind was racing. Was it an intruder, a neighbor, or something worse? But what happened next only deepened the confusion. A soft, familiar voice called out from the shadows just beyond the doorway. "Is it okay to come in now?" It was a woman's voice, calm, quiet, and definitely not one I recognized. My stomach turned. I looked down at Ethan, but he didn't look scared. He looked relieved, like a secret he'd been carrying was finally out in the open. I didn't answer right away. My body was frozen in place, every nerve on high alert. Ethan stepped forward slightly and opened the door wider. That's when I saw her. A woman, probably in her early 30s, dressed in simple clothes, holding a small backpack close to her chest. Her eyes locked onto mine, and something about the way she looked at me made my skin crawl. Not because she looked dangerous, but because she looked like she knew me, like she had been waiting for this exact moment. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice lower than usual, trying not to let Ethan hear the fear behind it. The woman glanced down at him, then back at me. I think he should be the one to explain. Ethan didn't say anything at first. He looked at the paper still crumpled in his hand, then slowly handed it to me. I took it with shaky fingers and unfolded it. It wasn't long, just a few handwritten lines in a child's uneven scrawl, but what it said made my heart stop. "Mom, please don't be mad. I met someone online. Her name is Ava. She said she knows something important about Dad." I looked at him, stunned. Online? When? How? We didn't even let him have access to social media. His tablet had restrictions. He was only supposed to use it for school and games. My mind scrambled to make sense of it. Ava stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. She didn't move any closer, but she didn't look like she was planning to leave either. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said, "but I had to come. I had to tell you both the truth." Ethan's eyes were wide, watching me closely, waiting for my reaction. I was trying so hard to stay calm, but every instinct in me screamed that something was very wrong. What truth was she talking about? And how did this stranger know my son, or anything about my husband? I wanted to ask more questions, but my voice wouldn't come out. My hands were still holding the note. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. And then Ava said something that sent a chill down my spine. "He's not who you think he is." The room felt like it shifted. I couldn't tell if I was standing or floating. My mind was stuck on that one sentence, playing it over and over. Not who I think he is? And just like that, everything I thought I knew about my family started to unravel. I stared at her, heart pounding, every word she had just said echoing in my head. He's not who you think he is. What did that even mean? My husband and I had been together for over a decade. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that ever made me question who he was at his core. He was kind, responsible, a good father. At least I thought he was. But now, this woman, this complete stranger, had walked into my house in the middle of the night, invited by my own son, claiming to know something I didn't. I finally found my voice. "You need to explain what you're talking about, right now." Ava stepped further into the room but kept a careful distance. She looked at Ethan again, like she wasn't sure how much she should say in front of him. "There are things about your husband's past that he's kept hidden, things that affect both of you, and especially your son." I instinctively pulled Ethan closer. "He's a child," I snapped. "Whatever you have to say it to me." Ava hesitated, then slowly opened her backpack and pulled out a small folder. She held it out without a word. I took it, hands shaking, and flipped it open. Inside were a few papers, old documents, maybe records of some kind, and a couple of faded photographs. One photo stopped me cold. It was of my husband, clearly much younger, standing with a woman who looked eerily like Ava. His arm was around her, and they looked happy. "That was me," she said quietly. "A long time ago." I looked up at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you saying you were in a relationship with him?" "Yes," she answered. "And there's more. But you need to know I didn't come here to destroy anything. I came because Ethan reached out, and I knew he had a right to the truth, even if you didn't." Ethan looked between us, confused but curious. "Mom, Dad always told me not to believe everything I see online. But she showed me proof. Stuff that makes sense now." My breath caught again. My son had been having secret conversations behind my back. My husband had a past I didn't know existed. And now, a woman I had never met was standing in my living room, unraveling it all. And I had the sinking feeling this was only the beginning. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the photo. My husband, my partner for more than 10 years, had never mentioned a woman named Ava, never shown me this side of his past. The image burned into my mind, and yet it wasn't just the photo that shook me. It was the look on her face. She didn't look angry. She looked sad, like she'd been carrying this burden for too long. Ethan tugged at my arm. "Mom, please don't be mad. I didn't know how else to tell you, but she's not lying. I saw the messages, and the other pictures too. I didn't mean to go behind your back, but I had to know. I looked down at him, my heart aching. He was just a boy, and yet he'd been pulled into something far too big for him to understand. He must have sensed something, seen things, overheard something, and started searching for answers. And what he found led him to Ava. I turned back to her. Why now? Why come here like this? If you were really part of his life, why disappear for so long? Ava's lips trembled as she took a breath. Because I didn't have a choice. I was told to stay away. Your husband, he made a deal to keep me out of the picture, to protect his new life. And for a while I accepted that. I moved on, or tried to, but then I learned something that made silence impossible. She reached into the folder again and held out another document. This one looked recent. I glanced at it. My hand started to tremble again. It was a court document, something about guardianship. My name wasn't on it. I didn't come here to start a fight, Ava said softly, but I have every reason to believe Ethan might be my son. The room spun. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. Ethan's face went pale. He looked at me, then at her, trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. My thoughts were spinning too fast. My chest felt tight. I couldn't speak. Just then my phone buzzed on the counter, a message from my husband. Landing soon. Can't wait to see you too. He had no idea what was waiting for him when he got home. And suddenly, neither did I. The minutes after that message felt like hours. I stood there, staring at the screen, my hands still shaking. Ethan was silent beside me, his little face pale and confused. Ava hadn't said another word. She just watched me, eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. Was it regret? Hope? Guilt? I kept replaying her last words in my mind. I have every reason to believe Ethan might be my son. That sentence alone unraveled everything I thought I knew about my family. But how could that be? I carried Ethan for 9 months. I was there the day he was born. Every memory, every ultrasound, every kick, every sleepless night was mine. The sound of the front door unlocking snapped me out of it. My husband was home. He stepped inside casually, suitcase in one hand, tie loosened, the usual tired but happy to be home look on his face. It took him about 3 seconds to notice the silence. And Ava. His eyes froze on her. Then slowly they moved to me, and then to Ethan. His smile vanished. Ava, he said, his voice low. She nodded. Hello, David. I could feel the air shift, tension wrapped around all of us like a net. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at him, waiting. I needed to hear it from him. The truth. He put down his bag, hands trembling slightly. I never wanted it to come to this. I stepped forward. You lied to me. For how long? He swallowed hard. I didn't lie about loving you. Or Ethan. But yes, there was a time before us. A time I buried because I thought I had to. And the paperwork? I held up the folder Ava had given me. This says you gave up guardianship, that you let her go. His voice cracked, because I thought she died. I was told Ava passed away, that the baby didn't survive. I didn't find out until years later that neither of those things were true. But by then, you and I were building a life, and I couldn't bring myself to open that door again. I thought if I ignored it, maybe it would go away. Ava stepped in, but it didn't. And now Ethan deserves to know the truth. Everything came crashing down at once. My husband had built a family on half-truths and secrets. Ava had lived with the pain of being erased. And Ethan, sweet, innocent Ethan, had been caught in the middle. Then, just as I thought the worst was over, Ava spoke again. I had a DNA test done last week. We all froze. She looked directly at me. You're not Ethan's biological mother. My heart stopped, and just like that, the truth I thought I was fighting for was no longer mine to hold. I couldn't breathe. The words echoed in my mind like thunder. You're not Ethan's biological mother. Everything around me blurred, like the world had tilted just enough to feel unreal. Ethan stood frozen beside me, his small hand slipping from mine. He looked between Ava and me, his eyes full of questions no child should ever have to ask. I took a shaky step backward, suddenly unsure of everything. That's not possible, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. I gave birth to him. I was there, every single moment. I remember the hospital, the pain, the joy. I remember holding him. Ava didn't respond right away. She looked pained, conflicted. I know what this sounds like. I know how hard it is to believe. But I had to know for sure. And when I found records that didn't match up, I followed every thread. I got a sample. I ran the test. Ethan is David's biological son, but not yours. My husband's face went pale. What are you saying? I'm saying the baby you brought home from the hospital wasn't yours. Time stood still. The weight of her words hit me like a tidal wave. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter to stay upright. My mind was racing, but the pieces were falling into place far too fast. Memories I hadn't questioned until now. A nurse who looked unfamiliar during a shift change. The brief confusion when Ethan's ID band had to be rechecked. I had brushed it all off. I had trusted the system. I had trusted him. I turned to my husband. Did you know? He looked stunned. Number, I swear. I never had any reason to think. But you knew about her, about Ava. You knew she might have had your child. I didn't know this, Claire. His voice cracked. I thought she and the baby were gone. Ethan took a small step forward. What does this mean? Who am I? That question shattered something inside me. I had no answer for him. I didn't even know who I was in that moment. Ava looked at me, her voice trembling. I'm not here to take him away. I just wanted the truth to come out. For him. For all of us. But the truth didn't feel like a relief. It felt like a storm, and we were still in the middle of it. No shelter, no answers, just the wind picking up speed, ready to rip through everything we thought we knew. The days that followed felt like living in a blur. Silence filled our home, the kind that comes when everyone is too afraid to say the wrong thing. Ethan clung to both me and his father, unsure who he could trust, unsure what any of it meant. And honestly, I didn't blame him. I had spent years believing I was his mother, not just because of what my body went through, but because of every scraped knee I kissed, every bedtime story I read, every tear I wiped away. And that doesn't vanish with a single piece of paper. David and I sat down together, the three of us, and talked, honestly, maybe for the first time in years. He apologized, not just to me, but to Ethan. He told him the full truth, without hiding behind soft words. He admitted his mistakes, and I saw something in him I hadn't seen in a long time. Fear. Not of me, but of losing the only family he ever truly had. Ava didn't push. She gave us space, never once threatening to take Ethan away. Instead, she asked to be a part of his life, in whatever way felt right for him. And surprisingly, Ethan said yes. Not right away, but one day he asked if she could come over. He wanted to ask her questions. He wanted to understand. I watched them talk on the back porch, his tiny legs swinging off the edge of the step, hers tucked neatly beneath her. I saw something between them, something honest, something kind, and I realized maybe it wasn't about who gave birth to whom. Maybe it was about who showed up, who stayed, who loved. Ethan still calls me mom. Not because I asked him to, but because he says it's what feels right. And Ava? She became something like family too. We built something strange, something messy, but something real. A family stitched together by love, honesty, and a choice to move forward. Life doesn't always follow the story we expect. Sometimes it breaks apart. Sometimes it writes its own twist. But in those broken moments, if we're brave enough to stay, to listen, to forgive, we find out who we really are. And in the end, I didn't lose a son. I just found out how strong love really is.